Hey everyone, I want to talk a little bit about the Oracle's merge clause, or merge statement. It's very different than what you might see in Microsoft SQL Server, so it's certainly worth taking a look at because Oracle is a very popular piece of software, and although it's not my favorite, it certainly is one that I come in contact with on a regular basis. Now, most things work just the same as they do, most simple statements work the same as they do between the two platforms, within reason. But the Oracle merge is very different, and that's what this video is for, just kind of talking about it. Okay, let me give you some demos of how it's going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out my tables here, and I'll remake them. So the first table is going to be my source of data. And the second table is going to be my target where I'm trying to put source data into. Now I just called the table source and target for convenience, but of course it could be anything. Now I'm going to load up the first table, the source table, with a couple rows of data. And I'm going to load up the second table, the target table, with just one row of data. And when I look at the data, I can see that the rows are similar for the first row, but the second row doesn't exist. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a merge statement. The merge statement is going to examine the target, or the source table. So using the source table, I want to merge data into the target table. And I tell it how I want to evaluate the data. I'm going to evaluate it on the first column of each table. So on the target table, that's this one here, it's going to look at column 1, and then it's going to go over to the source table and look at column 1, and if it's a match, I can do something. If it's not a match, I can do something different. So the way it's going to work is it's going to look at one row and then make a decision, then move on to the next row, then make a decision, move on to the next row, make a decision, and just keep repeating that process. In this example, I said, if you find a match, then perform an update. Just set the column 2 to be the value of 1000. So currently it's at 100, and this is our target. The bottom one's our target. If you find something that's not matched, then insert the data into my target table. Now we're going to get the values from the source, and it's going to go into the target. And when I run this code, that's exactly what we're going to see. Statement's processed. I'll go ahead and select the data from the table, and we can see that for the first row, when it examined the first row, it found that there was a match. So when matched, it performs an update. And set the value to 1000. When it wasn't matched, it didn't find a match for row 2 in the target table. So it inserted one by grabbing the value it was currently looking at. It was on this row when it made that decision, taking that data from the source and putting it in the target. So that's how it works. Pretty straightforward, very similar to, again, what I would see in other database products, including the one I work with the most, Microsoft SQL Server. A little bit of differences, but not by much. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start making some variations. First of all, I'm going to include a subquery, just to kind of show it can be done. I'm going to put the subquery in here and run it. It's the same query, except I'm setting it back to 100 instead of 1000. So when I run this, it looks at it and it finds that something is matched and between target table and the source table. That was the first column, C1, the first value of the first column. And so it sets it back to 100, and that's exactly what we see. We would expect that. There is no other rows to insert because they already had a match, and it only fires the insert when it's not matched. So you can use a subquery, or you can just use the name of the table. Using the name of the table is like saying select all. Subquery allows you to kind of fine-tune the results that you're going to compare it against. Now next, let's try basically this is a join, so let's try something that's non-equal. So we're going to do a non-equa join and see if that will work. So I'm going to say when it's not true that they match. When that is true, it says match, but I'm saying not true, we're going to set to 1000. Now this is either it's matched, so that's true, or it's not. And because we've switched it around, we've done basically a negation. We're going to see that that has gone to 1000, but it's actually happened on both. And that's because we ask the question, when you don't find a match, when that is true, I know it says match, but that's just what it does, then I want you to update it. And that happened on both rows. So that being the case, it went ahead and updated both. There was nothing to insert because it says it's not matched, but again, that was the opposite. Confusing, I know. I don't recommend you write code like this, but it's interesting that it does work. Another thing that will work is you can actually put a where clause in the update if you want. So right now my rows are both set at 1000, but if I wanted to, I could use the where clause and update only one. I'm still using the non-equa join to accomplish that, but that's not the important part here. The important part is the fact that only one of these got updated. That was the one that had the match here, where the target column had a value of 1. If I go ahead and change this around, so when C1 matches C1, oops, I'm sorry, I didn't highlight the whole thing. You have to be careful how you highlight it. Missing expression. Oops, sorry guys. Double equal there. That's not going to work for us. Okay. So you can see it didn't have any impact on it because just the way the logic ran. But and the reason is it had an impact on this part, but this part negated that. So anyway, you can use where clause in there. Now, some interesting things. Let's look at inserting new data into the source table. So I've got another row in there, and I'm going to go ahead and use the syntax again. I just switched over to the simple name of the table, and I'm just using an equa join here. So just joining when you find a match between the source and the target. So when you find a match, go ahead and update the second column to 100. And in the where clause, you note that I'm actually referring to the source's C1 column and the target C1 column. Now you can actually reference either table here in the where clause. And on the insert, you can reference use the where clause as well, but interestingly enough, you can only reference the source. So you can't reference the target. If you try, you'll get an error message. So that's a little tricky. You can see that it worked. It ran, the code ran. We see the new row has been inserted. And so the insert definitely is firing. It's definitely using the where clause. But let me go down and insert another row. And we're going to try it where we reference in the where clause the target table. So come over here and I run this. And you can see that right here it's got a T for target. And when I say this, it'll say the column is T. C1 is invalid. So it's a little oddity, but you can't reference the target table on the insert. You can reference it on the update. Okay, that's just something to know. Let's see. So we just have these 3 rows in here now. Now, let's see, what else? You can delete. You can delete, but you have to have an update clause to do it. So if I try, when it's matched, try deleting something. It's not happy with me. It's missing a keyword. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. Actually, I think I just did a common mistake in this this interface. If you do Control Z, it doesn't quite work the way you wanted it to. Okay, let me fix this. Okay, sorry about that. This nice live SQL interface that Oracle offers is really kind of cool, because you can actually, without installing Oracle, you can go and play with the code, but it does have a few drawbacks. Control Z is one of them. Anyway, so I put this back. You can see that I've got the delete in here, and I'm looking to only delete one of the rows. I have to do update. I have to set it to something, even if I'm not going to do anything with it. It's just one of the requirements. So it's not difficult. It's just that you would think you'd be able to get away with just putting in delete, but that is not the case. Let's see here. Oop, semicolon. When you run this code, you have to make sure you don't highlight the comment at the same time, otherwise it won't understand what you're doing. Okay, so if we come over here, we take a look, we can see that the 100 or excuse me, 1 is missing from column 1 because we deleted it. Let's see, a couple of things. They want you to use a parenthesis. Missing on keyword. Now I see the on keyword just fine. How about you? But it's not happy with it. They want parentheses around it, and then it's happy again. Okay. I would have expected it to be okay, but hey, that's the way it goes. Let's see. The other thing, you know, you may be used to saying insert into and values. You can't do that. You can't use into. So that is, you have to use, you can't just say update without set, but you also can't use into. It's just some oddities. So anyway, that's hopefully helpful to somebody out there who's been trying to kind of move over to using Oracle and have found Merge to be such a very handy tool that it is. But it may seem mysterious when you're first typing in the code because the rules may not make a lot of sense to you at first, but that's the rules and you just have to learn them and move on. Thanks for watching. Take care.